the exhaust system. Right now it's got two Summit Racing mufflers mounted ahead of the rear axle. Initially when I built this truck I put a Dana 44 in, and the rear diff, it's a quadra-track diff. It's offset for the reason that it has a quadra-track transfer case in it, and both of the outputs are on the passenger side. So that's why the rear axle diff is so offset to the right. The Dana 44s weren't as offset, and so that notch that was cut out of that cross member was actually over the Dana 44 pumpkin. I found out I had about 100 thousandths in play in the axle shaft, so instead of messing around with a bunch of bearings, I just threw a Dana 60 that I had off of a parts truck under here. It has 354 gears in it, which no J20 ever came with, but the tag even says it. I don't know if it'll show that. You can't really read it, I don't think. And they match the J10 front axle gear ratio, so they're both 354s, so it's basically set up like a J10. There aren't any rubber hangers on this exhaust system, so when I start it up, you hear that. I'm working on something now that will remove that problem. And there's the quadra-track. Leaks a little bit. So because I put a Dana 60 in here, I had to shorten the rear drive shaft. That's from a J10. I had a local shop shorten it about 1.5 inches, I think, because the Dana 60 has a longer snout sticking out the front for the input. And I didn't want to knock the back of my aluminum cased Borg Warner 1339 into itself. I've already blown one up and fragged a really good Morse chain. They're like $300 now, for unrelated reasons. And when the local guy put the drive shaft back together, he did not align the yokes to each other. They're off a little bit. And this drive shaft has been in this truck and been driven for the last 3 years, and it managed to wear out the slip joint splines and really Brunel the U-joint yoke ends, not the yoke ends, the cross ends. And so I basically rebuilt it with good used stuff, and I plan on cutting down a J20 drive shaft, which is about another 1 inch in diameter, but it's also a foot longer. I don't think there's anything else in here that I haven't. Okay, yeah, the brakes. So if you have a pre-1980 J20, you will be familiar with the big diaphragm. Can't really get a good view of it, but it's the dual diaphragm. Well, those started coming stock on, I think, every Jeep, full-size Jeep made 1980 and later, and there was a cast iron master cylinder here, master cylinder slash reservoir. They're two pieces, and they started doing that. These are off of a later. The master cylinder is off of 1985. I can't remember if the brake booster is as well. What you have to do, if you have the old style, is swap these front to back, and it works. They screw right in. And unfortunately, these are over $100 now. I didn't have to buy one of these recently, but I did have to buy one of those. And you can get them. You can get them at Rock Auto. You can get them at O'Reilly. They're pretty much all remans, but they're from the 80s instead of the 70s, and they will bolt right up. You'll have metric instead of SAE stuff. Well, I guess I could do the distributor. This is an AC Delco points distributor. Let me get around to the other side. It's a 1979 truck, so it came with a Motorcraft Duraspark, which is mounted there, and it has an adjustable vacuum advance canister. So you can adjust when your vacuum advance comes in. You don't adjust how much it pulls, but you can adjust when it comes in. The earlier versions were non-adjustable, and they had a lot of advance. So you're going to have to set your damper advance accordingly. Initially, I got the truck to run 5 degrees retarded with full manifold advance. But it was a real pain to start hot and cold. So I changed my vacuum lines all around. I actually screwed them up when I put them back in after the motor swap. And so now it runs on ported all the time. I don't have a CTO in it. I don't trust them. Yeah, I'm paranoid. But it's running at 4 degrees advance without vacuum. And I wrote a note to myself so I wouldn't forget. And it idles about 600. It's almost smooth. Because it's on ported, you're not getting vacuum advance signal because that slot feeds from above. It's either above or below, I can't remember now. The throttle blades, unlike intake manifold vacuum, which is on the other side of the throttle blades, once you open the throttle a little bit, those vacuum signals equalize. They will be pretty much the same, whether it's ported or manifold. It's just a difference in if you have advance at idle on a hot engine or not. It was designed, God, probably when I was a kid. Let's see here. I have a rebuilt, I think it's a 12 SI or a 10 SI, whichever one is the bigger one. I think stock they put out 74 amps. This one puts out more than that. I think this one it puts out somewhere between 90 and 120. I do not have a fan shroud on. I do, however, have a crossbar reinforcement piece here. This keeps these 2 separate towers from vibrating and breaking the solder bond on your radiator mounts. I've repaired enough of those that I got tired of it. And I'm actually okay at soldering. I just hate doing it because you got to pull everything out to do it. So if you reinforce this bracket and attach it to the other bracket, it keeps them from basically vibrating enough to where the solder in your radiator brackets doesn't fatigue and crack out. Oh, fuel filter. The fuel filter is for a 1994 GM pickup with 350 5.7 liter. It's supposed to be a 4-micron filter. There's still shit that ends up in my carburetor float bowls every now and then. About every 6 months I got to clean them out. You'll get a weird hesitation as you get back on the throttle, and that's because you've got some crud that's getting into one of your jets and blocking the fuel flow. This is a 4-post Ford starter solenoid. The later ones came with a 5, the earlier ones came with a 3. I also have a mean green starter mounted on this. It was wrong from the box. I had to machine metal off of it and then grind into the rear web on the back of the block where it right below or right above where the starter motor sits, so the solenoid would actually clear everything and mount flush. I don't know if I can even get on it. The heater box I think is in the way. Everything is in the way. I'm complaining. New cars, you can't see anything. It's all covered. No, I haven't done a 0 to 60 run in it because, like I said, drive chains are about $300 and this one is loose already. But that's the truck. It sounds like a tractor. But damn, it's fun. It's fun.